Hey there, it's Chris from Good Roads. A little while back on the channel, I made my first set of skateboard wheels. They were made using a 3D printed mold, printed on an FDM style printer, and they had 3D printed cores. Pretty freaking sweet. After that, I started exploring coreless wheels, and these were some pretty promising experiments. First of all, there are plenty of solid urethane factory-made wheels on the market, which means a wheel that doesn't have a 3D printed core is that much closer to being a professional level product. Secondly, I switched over to using resin printed molds, which gave me a level of detail that allowed me to get perfect bearing seats, which is a non-negotiable for a good set of wheels. And that's where we left off, because this was the largest set of molds that I could print at the time. But since then, I got a larger printer, did a ton of R&D, and I think I've finally got a design that will work and work well. And it is free and open source, so let's take a look. In my last video on the subject, I asked you all what style wheel you'd like to see a mold for. I got a number of comments asking for something in the ballpark of a 60mm center set pool wheel, so that's what we're looking at here. Straight off the printer, the molds need some post-processing, but nowhere near as much as the filament printed molds that I've done in the past. This time around, I'm experimenting with Scotch-Brite sanding pads. My thinking is that these will deform better into the curves of the molds and help me get a more even surface. I move my way up through the grits all the way to a buffing pad. Then I applied some paste wax, and after it was dry, I used a rag to polish it smooth. And there's our prepped mold. It's not glass clear, but it's plenty smooth enough for the job. The next thing I need to do is measure and mix my urethane. I used a similarly sized wheel to get a reference for how much I would need, and then I weighed out my parts A and B. I'm using Specialty Resin's Flex at 90 because it's a formula I'm familiar with and I think I know what to expect. For color, I'm adding some urethane pigments to the part B of the mixture. I'm using a mix of pigments from Specialty Resin and Smooth On. For now, I've only got the one mold, and since I want the color to be consistent across all four wheels, I tinted all of the part B I'm gonna need at once. I've done this in the past, and it's worked out fine, but this time around it led to some complications. More on that later. So, mold ready, mix my part A and my part B, and pour the mold by filling it most of the way, capping it, and then topping it off using these built-in pour spouts. Then it's over to the pressure pot for curing. I clamp down the lid and pressurize to about 45 psi to help eliminate bubbles in the finished part. A pressure pot or some kind of vacuum degassing is definitely necessary to make good strong wheels. I'm hoping to do some experiments to bring the tooling costs of that down soon, but for now I'm using a modified Harbor Freight pressure pot. I'll link to the video where I put my pot together. Also, the 3D printed parts that I used to upgrade my pot are now available for sale in the shop. Link down below. Once the resin is cured, you depressurize the pot, crack it open, and pull out your mold. And then your mold magically changes from clear to white. It's definitely not because I forgot the mold release. Forgot the mold release. And I definitely didn't smash the mold with a hammer to get my wheel out. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, because we're smart and stuff, and we definitely didn't forget the mold release, the wheel comes right out. Oh, wow, that came out so easily. Boom! Yo, mold release. Mold release. My God. Then all you need to do is carefully trim the flashing. An X-Acto knife works well for this, but a deburring tool can also be really helpful. And seriously, be careful. These things are sharp. And check it out, that is a legit skate wheel. That's actually the wheel I made with that first mold that I definitely didn't shatter. The second one I made though had some issues. Even under pressure, the urethane bubbled a ton, and you can see stress fractures starting to form. This is not a wheel I feel safe riding. So let's try again, this time with mold release. In the past, I've used petroleum jelly thinned down with alcohol, but this time around, I'm using the real deal. Stoner urethane mold release. And holy cow, this stuff works wonders. A little goes a long way too. You only need a very thin coating. Now, about those bubbles. I know from my sidewall experiments that urethane does not like moisture, so I thought maybe I was introducing some with my wooden stir sticks or something. So for this pour, I used some metal cutoffs, thinking that they definitely wouldn't carry any moisture. Wait, pause for a second. Do you guys see this? My footage is slowly getting white and blurry. Normally, this would drive me nuts, and I'd be trying to do some levels correction in post, but I wanted to show you this. This is my lens fogging up from the insane humidity we've got right now. Just keep that in mind, and we'll come back to it later. Anyway, I was feeling bold and jealous of @skatewheelmaker on Instagram, so I decided to try a 2-color pour. In addition to the green I had mixed earlier, I mixed up a fresh batch of yellow and poured them together into the mold. Pressurized, cured, and... ugh, well that's no good. The urethane bubbled like crazy again, at least the green side did. I looked at my mixing cups to confirm, and yep, the yellow mix didn't bubble all that much even in the open air, but the green mix foamed up like crazy. What is going on? I was getting clean casts of this only a few hours ago. Is the green pigment I'm using just old and past its shelf life? Maybe. But on a hunch, I tried something. It had been a couple hours since I pre-mixed my yellow batch of Part B, so I quickly measured and mixed in a small amount of Part A, let it cure, and... Foam City. It was behaving exactly the same way the green was. So this wasn't a matter of contaminated mixing sticks or old pigment. The longer I left my urethane out, the worse the foaming got. It was the humidity. It was the freaking humidity. The urethane that was exposed to the open air was getting contaminated by the insane amount of atmospheric moisture we've got going on right now. I looked it up, and of course, urethane has a recommended working humidity level, and I am well above it. Short of casting in a climate-controlled shop, I don't really know how to account for that. But I have one more Hail Mary play in mind. The urethane straight from the bottle was still getting me good cures, and I had just barely enough to cast the rest of a set of wheels, so I just dumped my pigment straight into the bottle. Hopefully that'll be enough to keep the wet out. Measure, mix, pour, cure. Looks like it might have worked. Ugh, that mold works though. Hey! That's a solid wheel. Okay. Success! A few casts later, and after many trials and tribulations, I had a solid set of 4 cast wheels. They're a mismatched set, but I used my last drop of urethane making these. It really came down to the wire. Let's get them on board and see how they work. But hey, Chris, inquiring minds want to know, do they slide? I don't know about you, but I'd call that a slide. Almost. Oh, almost straight away from that one. I'll take it. I gotta go home and edit. See you guys soon. I cannot express how exciting that was. First slides ever on homemade wheels? I don't know. What do you think? So, they ride pretty dang good. They break out pretty easily. I'm not 100% on the lingo, but I think the term is icy. Honestly though, these wheels make me think of soap. There's something slippery about them, but also a little soft. It's a really interesting feeling, and I would love to see what someone who can actually slide well would do with these. They're a little slow to me, and that might be because I'm used to riding larger wheels with a lower duro, which carry speed a little better, but it might also be that this isn't a particularly high rebound formula. Which gets me thinking, it might be time to start reaching out, spreading our wings, and trying some of those other off-the-shelf urethane formulas. It might also be time to make good on that idea of making a suite of urethane testing machines. I feel like that would be something really fun to do here on the channel. The mold, however, worked gangbusters, especially with that mold release. It was the easiest thing in the world. And you guys know why I'm here. I want to get you all making your own gear, so the print files, along with the working files for these molds, are available for free over at goodroadscollective.com. I'd also like to eventually have some of these for sale. I'm still working on fine-tuning my print settings, but hopefully they'll be available soon, so stay tuned. And I really did design this in a way that I think will be highly modifiable. I'm gonna take this template and use it to make all kinds of wheel molds, most of which will be for sale. But the mother recipe, this original version, and the files that I used to make it will always be open source. And I would like to actually show you guys how to take this and modify it to make whatever kind of wheel you want. And in order to do that, I'm gonna need an example wheel to make. So here's what I wanna know. What style of street wheel would you guys like to see me make? Conical, chiclet, traditional style? Let me know down in the comments below, and the style of wheel that gets the most love will be the next one that I make. One last thing, gents and gamblers. I made this deck. I made these bushings. I made these wheels. I guess the only thing left is the trucks. And they're coming. So, if you want to see that and all the other awesome DIY board sports stuff we do here on the channel, you're just gonna have to go ahead and hit subscribe. Huge, huge, huge shout out, as always, to my supporters over on Patreon, but especially for this week and for this project, because it is their support that gets me the urethane and the resins to test and try out all these designs to get them ready to release to y'all for free. They are the true heroes behind these open source designs, and if you'd like to pitch in, there'll be a link down in the description below. As always, I love having you guys along for the ride, so until next time, I'll see you soon. All right, here we go. Farty sandals off. I think that was probably good enough, right? Okay. La tiempo de editing. De editando, no sé.